This week on Speaking of Gothic, I dive into the Netflix series Gothic masterpiece that is Wednesday. I love it. Here it goes. Check it out. Wednesday, right now. All right. Here we go. My name's Kevin, and welcome to another episode of Speaking of Gothic. I watched Wednesday. I finished it last week. I didn't binge it straight, but I was starting to watch it with my daughter. And then something happened. We weren't able to watch it together, but I finished it. And once I started watching it, I could not stop watching it. I mean, I love this series. You know, maybe I wasn't the target demographic because it's probably aimed at, teenagers and young people. My daughter's 17, but I was talking to somebody recently who watched it, and, they're my age. So, but I have to tell you, as soon as I saw the first trailer, I was like, okay, yeah, this looks really good. And then as I found out the name of the Academy, Nevermore Academy, I was all in. I mean, Edgar Allan Poe. I mean, can you believe it? Nevermore. Whoever, the creators of this series, I'm not even going to try to say their names. You can find their names. But they knew what they were doing. It was amazing. It was amazing. So let's dig into the tropes. So I kind of want to talk about the tropes, and I want to kind of define these tropes really quick, and then we'll dive into the tropes as they are laid out in the show Wednesday on Netflix. But in order for something, from my definition of Gothic horror, Gothic romance, or the Gothic, there has to be some sort of grotesque or dark subject matter. There needs to be an element of the supernatural, or it could be creatures, or it could be both. Usually there's Gothic environments, which could be haunted mansions, castles, underground basements, lairs, isolated spaceships, or something like that. And talking about isolation, usually there's a sense of isolation or remoteness either in a character's mind, or they're physically isolated somewhere or in a remote environment. There's also suspense, mystery, tension, and fear throughout the piece, book, TV show, whatever it is. And there's heightened or exaggerated emotions, and of course, and there's also persons in distress. This trope used to be called women in distress, but I'm naming it persons in distress because there is a lot of characters, especially in this series, and everybody's in distress in this one. And not always, but there's sometimes a person who shares a psychic link or connection or ability with the events that are happening. And I'll talk about that. And another one, and again, these are not in order. Another one is that there is often Gothic or formalized language. So having said that, does Wednesday fit these tropes? I don't know. Let's see. All right. The grotesque. The series definitely leans into the grotesque. I was actually kind of surprised because there's several murders that take place in this series. And I was like, wow, they're really going there. Okay. All right. Some people got gutted. They showed a body on an autopsy table. Oh, also, I'm not going to spoil anything about this show. So if you have not seen Wednesday yet, again, I was kind of late to the party, but if you haven't seen it yet, please go watch it. And I won't spoil anything as I talk about these tropes. But there is some sort of mysterious monster or creature or something haunting the Nevermore Academy grounds, and also the surrounding town, because there's a small town. I can't remember the name of it right now. I didn't put it in my notes, but it's also haunting the small town, and there's a bunch of murders that are happening. Some of them kind of grisly, kind of surprised me. The supernatural and or creatures. Okay, so, and this is going to kind of go back into, I'm actually going to fold this one into the psychic connection, because Wednesday, without giving too much away, she has some visions that occur throughout the series. She will touch an object or something, and then she'll see something, some sort of vision, and she'll also see images of the monster. And the monster's not shown until later in the series, in some of the final episodes. But she shares a connection with one of her dead ancestors, one of the Addams family ancestors. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I hadn't seen that before. I mean, I was not expecting that in this show. I don't know what I was expecting, but it was great. I loved it. Here's a super important one. The Gothic environment. Remember I said Gothic environments that could be desolate, mansions or castles, etc. Well, Nevermore Academy is super gothic. I mean, like for real gothic. The building is tall and it gives off a Victorian mansion vibe or like a castle. And it looks ominous in the daytime, but at night it looks super spooky. And just like for me, I look at it and I say, oh my goodness, that's gothic. It feels like I'm watching like an old Dracula movie or an old Universal horror movie or a Hammer film. So that's fabulous. And even all the environments, the woods surrounding the town, the boarding school, they're dark and shadowy. And it seems like there's danger everywhere. And also, every building in the series, it's so weird. Even in the daytime, whether it's a small curio, antique shop, the therapist's office, even though it's stark white, and there's a secret meeting place of a group. And I don't want to say the name of the group because, again, if you haven't watched it, I don't want to give the name away. But this secret society is underground, the main building, and there's symbols on the floor. And if I remember, bookshelves and weird figurines. And to gain entrance to this, there's a huge statue of the godfather of Gothic himself, Edgar Allan Poe. I was done. I saw that and I was like, man, they hooked me. Well, actually, they hooked me from the very beginning. So who am I kidding? And also the sense of isolation. Wednesday wants to escape because, she's forced by her parents and I guess the state to go to this boarding school because of something she does in the very first episode. But she really can't escape. She doesn't have a car. She can't get out. And she attempts to do it a couple times, but it doesn't really work out too well. There's suspense, mystery, tension, and fear. Every character is scared or terrified of the creature. And Wednesday, she's extremely smart. She's capable. And she doesn't really show any fear. She doesn't even blink, which is crazy. I love it. But all the other residents of the town and of the school, everybody's terrified of the murders. And of course, because they're terrified, there's heightened emotions. And what I kind of love about this is that all the characters seem to experience, except for the sheriff, he's pretty calm. All the characters seem to experience some sort of extreme, heightened, almost exaggerated emotions. And I think it could be silly if it was in another series, but in the context of this series, I think it works perfect. And honestly, it is ripped right out of the Gothic tradition because of all these old Gothic novels and some of these old movies, they all have some sort of, the characters are in just extreme distress and everything's heightened. It's almost operatic. So the fact that it was like this in the series, I think it was brilliant. And I loved the direction that they did with that. And persons in distress, all the characters are in distress, and especially Wednesday. She's the protagonist and she's in distress every single episode. It seems like something happens to her. And I think that's the way it is. But it kept me wondering, okay, what's going to happen? I mean, I knew Wednesday, I didn't think she was going to die because, she's the main character, but I didn't know she was going to be injured. And some characters get injured. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that character got hurt. So I really love, and I was involved in this show. And again, in the Gothic tradition, since that's what we're talking about, speaking of Gothic over here, in the Gothic tradition, it's perfectly in line with that, with somebody being in distress. Remember I mentioned Gothic or formalized language. Every character, because this takes place in contemporary day, they never really say the date, but it's just contemporary times. But Wednesday, she uses like a different sort of diction, and she speaks in a very formalized way. And I think that it's very suited, her tone and diction is very suited to the Gothic style of storytelling. And she's even narrating shit because she's working on a novel and she's typing on a typewriter. My God, I don't even know if I can type on a typewriter anymore, but she's typing a novel on a typewriter, and then there's some voiceover and you hear her novelistic author voice come through, and it's perfect because it's maintained whether she's typing on her novel and you hear the voiceover or when she's speaking to any character. It just totally works. I can't even tell you how much I love this series. I was surprised because I was thinking, oh, maybe I'm too old for this series. But no, I love this series, and I don't care. I'm going to scream it to everybody who wants to talk about. I love Wednesday. I love this series. I can't wait to see if there's a season 2. So my verdict, it's fun, it's interesting, has complicated characters, and I think Wednesday is a perfect figure right out of the Gothic tradition. almost as if she stepped off the pages of a spooky horror novel, I think. So if you love Gothic shows, Gothic horror, Gothic romance, whatever, if you love Gothic shows, do yourself a favor. Watch this show. Don't worry about, like, if you're older, don't say, oh, well, there's all these young people. It's like a YA thing. No. There's some of that, but no, it's great. I mean, because it has just enough interest, and just following Wednesday's character, it's great. And I have to say, Jenna Ortega is amazing. She is my new favorite young actress. I mean, she is spot on. And the dance, I think it's episode 4 where she danced. I mean, some of you have probably already seen this clip, even if you haven't even seen the series. I love the dance. I was showing it to my wife and she's like, oh, that's so good. So watch Wednesday. Do yourself a favor. Watch it. Wednesday is a Gothic horror masterpiece. You will not be disappointed if you like anything Gothic and you watch Wednesday. All right. Thank you, fellow Gothics. And until next time, remember, be kind to one another. Bye.